How about today we have a very interesting topic, and basically we can say that the issues. It's like there's a saying, and it says, um, when you get information from the internet, it's like drinking from the fire hose, from drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. So getting information from the internet, it's like drinking from a fire hose. Have you ever tried to drink from a fire hose, guys? So much information, too much stuff going on. You can't even keep up. I even get like tongue twisted. I don't even know what to say anymore. Yeah. And what to start with. I think what we have to do is just start wherever we start. So before I continue, first of all, let me make sure that Susan is aware that we're here. I've been having a little bit of an issue with my internet connectivity today, but let's just hope that she gets on board. Let me invite her. Yeah, I think she can see that we're live. Yeah, we're live. So anyway, guys, yeah, welcome to the live stream. Let me also post the invitation for you so that you can also join us. If you go to the comment section, you'll see that I have pasted a link, and it's right over there. Let me paste the link. There it is. It's called StreamYard.com. So if you're joining us from YouTube or from Facebook or let's say from Twitter, yeah, you could go into the StreamYard and actually join us in the studio, or you can join us in the comment section. So today we're going to be discussing various issues. We're going to start it today and we're going to finish it off on Wednesday. And I believe we've also received some very helpful feedback from some of you who have said to us that we're starting our shows a little bit late and that we should maybe consider starting a little bit earlier for the Kenyans or the East Africans or Africans, maybe start a bit earlier. And we will try to do that, especially when the topic is about Eastern Africa. The trouble But sometimes what happens with the recordings, if we actually include some videos, they might have to be removed depending on whether or not they're approved for publishing. Okay, I'll be inviting Susan pretty soon. But generally, today we saw a lot of things going on in Kenya, a lot of things happening in Kenya. What's happening in your region of the world, I wonder, yeah? In Kenya here, we have a lecturers' strike, which is ongoing currently. Okay. The lecturers are on strike. The students are begging the lecturers to get back to class because they can't do their exams. And the lecturers have said that nobody can invigilate or supervise any exams because they're internal and not external. And therefore, until their collective bargaining agreement has been honored, they are not going back to class. So we have students who are stuck, who cannot do their exams, okay? So their testing is delayed. Their HELB, which is the Higher Education Loans Board, the money that they were supposed to have been receiving, they claim has not been released in full, although the Treasury Director said that he had released, I think, 21 out of 31 billion, I think. I don't know how much it is. But the university funding model is also under review. And so that's the situation with the students. And the lecturers are not available to oversee exams, like I said before, So, and, they will not allow any other mode of administration of those exams to happen. So this has been going on for the past 2 weeks, and it's actually a very concerning thing because students are affected. And when students are affected with their exams, how demoralizing it is, how expensive it is. And students are a category of people that the government is always very careful about, because they're young people, they got lots of energy, and as it is currently. So I see Susan is actually in studio. Let me invite her in first. Hi, Susan. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Susan?
Thanks.
Okay, you're good. Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, so let me just continue a little bit of a small roundup, so then Susan can join us there. Okay, and then we also have the treasurer who decided that he was going to join with what they call Bunge la Wananchi, which is basically when it's like a stakeholders of the group of stakeholders, Kenyans getting together, citizens. It's like a group of a parliamentary citizens parliament. I think we call that citizens parliament. So it's an informal parliamentary group that meets out on the streets, and they were actually critiquing the work of the treasurer. And the treasurer actually came up to say, "Hey, I'm open for criticism. Yeah, I'm open." And I was like, "Really, really? Eh?" He's open for criticism. He says he wants to know whether he's going to resign or whether he's going to continue. I was quite impressed by that, and I was happy actually to see him actually decide to, join the people in the streets and be open to listening to them. I think that's a very good thing. It's better than abducting people. Listen to people instead of abducting them. Unfortunately, in Kenya, we have a situation where people again have been abducted. Unfortunately, these are even government employees. We have 5 chiefs in Mandera village, in a village in Mandera, which is in northern Kenya. They were abducted. They were abducted. The government has put together what they call a multi-agency security team that is led by the Kenya Defense Forces, and they're trying to see whether they can rescue them. And currently, well, they're stating that it could be terrorist groups like either Al Shabaab, we're not so sure who, but we also know that America actually initiated an offensive on ISIS targets in Somalia. And we're not sure whether this could be a retaliation. We're not really sure what's going on, but we're back again to the terrorism that we had actually said, hoped that we had said goodbye to. It looks like we're back to it, and we're praying that the 5 chiefs who are not available, the 5 chiefs who are missing, are going to be found alive, and that they are going to be safe. And we hope that they will come back to their families. And we really pray, that our country is not going to go back to those dark days of terrorism. Okay. Yeah, so that's the situation there. And again, in Kenya, this is continuing on with Kenyan news. We have issues to do with affordable housing. Apparently, the government has created about 13,000 units of affordable housing, and they have already started to, to what do you say, make it available to citizens. And so this one is called Mukuru Affordable Housing, and it's costing approximately 640,000 shillings for a studio apartment. 640,000 shillings for a studio, and they're going for about 3,900 shillings per month rent. So there's this one lady, her name is Milka Mora, who I saw on the news today. She's a beneficiary of that affordable housing. And wherever she's been staying right now, she's paying approximately 4,000 shillings. So she'll be paying 100 shillings less. But the thing that worries me is that despite the fact that it's probably accessible and maybe more affordable, the fact is that she has children. How does a woman live in a studio apartment with kids? Okay, they're talking about the fact that there's playground areas outside, that there's a school on the compound and things like that. But think about it, guys, living space. How does a mother live with her babies in a room? Why are we normalizing this kind of thing, especially in Africa where we have so much space? Why are people building like little tiny apartments, little holes, they say, in the sky for parents and children? It's not necessarily the best way to live. And we need to review this issue of housing and what is appropriate housing. Because if you go, like, for example, in developed countries, they'll tell you that if you have a boy and a girl, you have to have separate rooms for them by gender. And, we, in the work that I have done in my past, and I am sure Susan would remember maybe some of these, where we've done evaluations of educational programs. We will find in some cases, we find domestic violence and abuse of children is escalated where there is inadequate living space. Like, for example, where there's a family that is sharing a room, and let's say the parents are sleeping on a bed and the children are sleeping under the bed. Can you believe this? This is how people live in the slums. So if you're going to move people from the slums or from the informal settlements where they're already living in one little room, just to move them into another of what they call affordable housing unit, which is also just one room. Really, are you improving their living conditions or are we not? What are we really doing? And also, if there's 640,000 shillings and the person is going to be paying that 4,000 shillings, don't you think that those units are going to end up being rented out to people instead of them, actually benefiting? People might take the unit and rent it out. This kind of thing actually happened. It happened in India. It happened in India where the government tried to move people from informal settlements into formal housing, into proper housing. What they did, the residents moved there grudgingly and then eventually moved back to the informal settlements. Why? Because they felt that they lost their communities. They lost that feeling of community. Because when you go into these formal housing settlements, there's very little interaction, and also, they're used to their living standards and their living styles, so it's very difficult to change people. But anyway, it's good if the government has completed some units. Good. But on the other hand, let's look and see whether this housing is actually high quality or not. Okay, whether it's going to improve the quality of life for the people who are benefiting from those units. Again, there are many people who have paid for those units in the government and they're working for the government, and they may not actually benefit from them. Some of them have paid for units based on the income. It's based on a sliding fee. Yeah, based on your income, that's the amount of tax that's deducted is based on the amount of income that you earn. So some people have said that they've already paid more than that 640,000 shillings, which would be more than one unit, and they themselves own their own home. So this is one of the issues that need to be sorted out there. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things. And then, as part of housing, another very sad piece of news I heard is that there's a little boy who drowned in a manhole in Machakos. This is another issue about our building standards, our housing standards, the way we live, our environment. Is our environment safe? Why are children still till today drowning in wells and manholes in this country? Where we have, where our city is literally on the global map. Everybody is going, is that Kenya? Oh my God, are those highways? Oh, is that a train? Is that a train? Are these, is this a transportation system? When we want to elevate our country, we're still getting reports like these ones that were for the dark ages of children drowning in manholes. And to me, that is actually not acceptable in today's world. No, it is not acceptable. Moving on to what's going on the international news, we have seen in Congo that Goma has been overtaken by the I don't know whether you call them the rebels, but basically what has happened is that there's a lot of people who are moving out of Goma now, and people are running for their lives. And unfortunately, this is the eastern part of the Congo, which is very rich in minerals, and a lot of people are being displaced from their homes. And Kagame of Rwanda, President Kagame of Rwanda, is being blamed for this. And I saw that the presidents of Kenya and Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa and Ruto, are putting together, EAC and SADC are coming together to they're actually calling for a meeting between Rwanda, the Rwandan leader, and the Congolese leader, and try to see if they can sort out this problem. I hope that it actually, works, and that they are able to stop this, because it's very unfortunate for brother to fight a brother. It's actually something that is not acceptable. We also know that Rwanda has been facilitated by the European Union up to, I think, about 20 million euro or more, to try and secure minerals for them in the Congo. So this is actually a worry, and France as well. So we want to know the truth about what's happening really in that situation. Yeah. Unfortunately, South Africa sent troops in to try to secure the Congo and to help the Congolese troops and the Congolese army. But unfortunately, they also lost some of their members. And unfortunately, they are blaming Rwanda for this. This is just an escalation. So, my issue is I think that East Africa, we are undergoing a sort of crisis, yeah, in our region, and it is not good. Yeah, so there's a task force that has been formulated to coordinate and consolidate laws in Kenya. Oh yes, that's one thing that Susan is going to cover. I'm going to leave Susan to the laws, but Susan can be reminded about this task force that is being put together to consolidate laws and acts and to try to enhance the relationship of the Ministry of Health in the ministry, the relationships between the various Ministry of Health offices in Kenya. But that's about Kenya now. Now, the thing is that this is as much as I'm going to cover right now before I allow Susan in. And Susan, you're welcome to the show and help us to unpack all of this information that is like literally too much for us.
Uh, um, Hi everyone. Yeah, there's a lot going on around the world. You know, certainly the issue that you raised first about the lecturers being on strike, they're not getting their money. What is interesting about some of these conversations is that the government says they've released money, but sometimes on the other side, they're saying they haven't received the money. So I'm not sure what the status is right now, whether they've confirmed that they've got the money that the government is saying they've released. Also, with regard to the students, actually, they were on the streets today,
Mm-hmm.
and they were actually protesting. They had diverted the traffic along Wayaki Way, so people had to look for alternative routes, so as not to meet
Mm.
with their ire and their
Mm-hmm.
annoyance. So yeah, I know somebody was actually caught up in that, and they had to find a different route altogether, which was quite a challenge.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so some of the things they're protesting, apart from the interference with the exams, because the lecturers have refused to who are on strike, there's nobody to invigilate, is the funding system. University, the new funding model, actually it was challenged in court and found to be unconstitutional. It was found to be discriminatory, and it was found to be unconstitutional. This is by the matter was taken before the Constitutional Court, the High Court, which sits as a constitutional court. Yeah, and then the other thing about Badi meeting with the Wananchi, so they raised many things. They're talking about the raid on their paychecks. They're saying really we can't have this going on. Our paychecks are being, we're getting, our disposable income is seriously at risk. It's getting lower and lower, and yet we're expected to meet all these things. And then he said, well, in 2025, we will not be raiding. There will be no new taxes. That's one thing he said. Yeah, I don't know whether I've been lost. Hello? Yeah. So 2025, can you hear me? Yeah. So these are some of the things they said. So there was raid on paychecks. Interestingly, the Federation of Kenya Employers also touched on that, and they really warned the government and said, please, this raid on the paychecks is causing a lot of disquiet among employed people. They're the ones who are suffering the most because they're there's easy access to their income directly from through the employers, and it's likely to cause like civil disquiet. That is the warning that they gave government recently. Yeah, some of the questions that the CS Badi of the Treasury faced during his conversation with Bunge la Wananchi was, right, you guys, there seems to be a lot of wastage of funds. State House how much money is actually being spent on its renovation, and is it really a priority? And so, he was challenged, and what I heard, one of his remarks was that, look, what we can do, we're telling you how much has been spent, but if you don't want us to spend any more, then we can look into that, and so that no more money is being spent. So he was, that's how he responded. But as a cabinet secretary, some of these decisions are not, he cannot really make them. So we don't really know what the weight of his comments are to the wananchi in those spaces, because I don't think he can make them unilaterally. um, yeah, it's really sad about the abduction. We've also not just had the abduction of the chiefs, we've also had recent, some people who were abducted a while ago. They've been found, their bodies have been found, and they are now deceased, and that is something that is, of great concern, and that we're still having people disappearing, and when they disappear, many have been found unalived, which is something of concern. Who is abducting? There's a lot of calls that somebody needs to give an account, somebody needs to be held accountable. Is it the Inspector General, or who in particular is behind this? And everybody is denying that they know that they are involved in the abduction. So really, the buck stops, I think, with the executives. So they should be the ones giving the report. He's our chief executive officer of this nation. He was voted for directly by Kenyans, and he needs to give an account to the people of Kenya, um, through his, delegated, the people who are in charge of security. They must be doing some sort of investigation. So the issue of the affordable housing is very, very, very controversial. Many people have been contributing. The statutory deductions have been made from people's salaries, and yet they're unlikely to benefit from that scheme at all. There are again questions about who is benefiting from those houses. I remember listening to the public participation on the tax laws. There were bills at that time. I was listening to it, and one person actually said, "Look, I have contributed, I have finished paying, and I do not have a house." And I think there's some homes, some of the affordable housing buildings are in the Gara area. And so he was saying, "Oh, I don't have a house." So that was quite embarrassing, actually. So they told him to speak to them later, and they'll find out why he has not been allocated a house. He said there are people staying in those houses; they're fully occupied, that I don't have one, and yet I've paid. Again, people who have been paying, many of them are unlikely to actually benefit from that. So how this scheme works is raising a lot of questions, is raising a lot of concern, um, and things like that. Big questions again is that people would maybe prefer to be able to live in houses that they've designed, they've chosen how the house is going to be, and stuff like that. These are buildings that look identical. They sort of the issues of the character of the buildings, and you're not able to make choices about what you would like, where, and how. That has been taken away from people. That choice has been taken away from people. The other thing that Mo talked about was the housing issue and the safety of children. And she said that a child fell into a hole. And yes, indeed, we've had a lot of damage has been actually done because of heavy rains, and the repairs have not been made. Actually, if you're not careful, in some spaces you can actually walk into quite deep holes, and it's important that these spaces be fixed. Yeah. So the other thing that we need to look at is what's happening with the in the League of Grant. There's been a gazette notice that, not a gazette notice, a public participation notice that has been doing the rounds with regard to the constitutional amendment that was brought, a private bill that was brought by Senator Cherargei, regarding, and it's called regarding the extension of the term of office of elected people under our constitution, the president and the all those, the governor and all that. And so it's a Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Amendment number 2, Bill of 2024, and Senate Bill number 46 of 2024. So Samson Cherargei is the one who has moved it. It is a notice that he has brought forward. He emphasized, I was listening to him in an interview, he did emphasize that I think it was with Citizen, and he did emphasize that he was doing it as a private member. He was not doing it as, he was doing it as a private member. He gave his explanation as to why he was doing it. The matter, from what I could see when I looked at the bill tracker, was that it was published on 30th of August 2024. First reading was on 26th of September 2024. It was referred to the Committee of Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights and tabled on 31st of October 2024. So it's due for a second reading. According to that, the bill tracker had said on Christmas Day last year, but I've tried to find that information, but I'm not getting it. So the latest information I can give about that particular bill is that it's still a bill. It has not been signed into law, and that it's on its second reading. So it still has a way to go. One thing that Cherargei said in an interview was that regarding the extension of the term from 5 to 7, that he was considering it because he was sitting in the public participation interviews that were held, and people held very, very strong views on why that period should not be extended. In fact, what happened is that those people who sent in their responses via the website that was provided, that they actually, there was over 200,000 responses that came from Wananchi. I assume many of them were actually opposing the extension of term for the president and others. Actually, that bill that was moved by Cherargei is actually more involving than just the extension of term. It's also seeking to provide some clarity regarding the sharing of work between the Senate and the National Assembly. The objects and reasons, I'm just looking for it. I'm looking at the act here. The bill is Memorandum of Objects and Reasons. It says that it proposes to amend Article 58 of the Constitution to provide for the involvement of the Senate and National Assembly as the Houses of Parliament in approval of an extension of state of emergency. That's one thing, because it affects the stability and functioning of the national and county governments and the nation as a whole. So they feel that they should be involved in that. It also proposes to amend Article 96 of the Constitution, which regards the Senate's oversight power over revenue allocated to, raised by, or otherwise received by the county governments and its expenditure. This is to ensure that there's greater clarity on the role of Senate in oversighting county revenues. It also proposes to amend Article 101 to extend the term of Member of Parliament from 5 years to 7 years. Article 108 also to provide for the leadership and order of presidents in Senate. So it's quite involving. It's more than just extension of the term. So what happened with some of the clauses of this bill, some of them were not as contentious as others, but all the ones that had anything to do with extending the term of office of our political class and the presidency and the political class were opposed to very much. Some of the reasons that were given for this were, for instance, somebody said, one of the people opposing said, well, we have given you 5 years and you've not done anything. What will you do in 7 years? Others recommended, in fact, the term should be shortened to 4 years. We had an MP, a senator, saying that he was one of the people who was pushing that the term should be shortened. And then we had some people who had, of course, other grounds, which were legal grounds, and some of them included the fact that and here we're listening to Abdikadir Mohammed, who was sitting in he's a constitutional lawyer, and he was involved actually in the framing and in the development of the Constitution 2010. And he said some of the issues that they are raising are so substantive as to change the nature of what the Wananchi wanted in the first place, because our Constitution establishes what we call a presidential system and not a parliamentary system. But when they talk about creating the office of the prime minister and official leader of the opposition, it is actually that those are actually elements of a parliamentary system. And so he was saying that the Kenyans themselves chose a presidential system. They wanted to vote for their chief executive directly. Chief executive is the president. And that's what we have in our constitution currently. So this is not a matter that can just be changed like that. It has to go for referendum because the changes are so substantive. The other thing is that something that he raised is that it is not driven by the people. It is actually not driven by the people. It's driven from the top. Constitutional amendments historically are driven by the people. It's the desire of the people that the law should be changed somehow, and this is what happens. And so the other thing is the priorities of Kenyans today is what is needed. What is needed right now is that we need to be to address issues of unemployment, issues of our livelihood, issues of the health system, which is not working. There are a lot of complaints about that. We know the SHA and SHIF. There are a lot of complaints about it. It's always in the news. And in fact, our members of parliament did have a sit down with the authorities and they said it was an interesting discussion. They were in Naivasha, and they called the people who were supposed to be in charge of this whole new healthcare system, the Taifa Care. And they had a conversation with them and said that they could not clarify. It was not clear. There's an issue of accountability. Who's responsible for rolling out this, and why isn't it working? And they were saying, and this is from both sides of the divide, both opposition and the majority side, and they were saying that they could not answer any questions. And this is not the first time that they've been asked. So the healthcare system is one of those things that has caused a lot of concern, because like the parliament, they're representing members of the public. The members of the public are complaining about what is happening to them, that they are not accessing the care, and even for what they're paying, they're not getting the right services. A lot of complaints about whether or not it takes too long for things to happen, for you to be able to get into the system, and even for you to be served. And some of these things can cause a lot of loss. In the end, what happens is that people end up having to go into their pockets to pay because of the unnecessary delays in that case. In previous shows, we've talked about some of the things that are handicapping the healthcare system, and one of them is historical debt from NHIF. And those are that is something so serious because it's affecting the ability of the institutions, of the healthcare institutions to run efficiently. Um, so in this country, for them to think about um, the Cheregay's amendment, it doesn't seem to be very relevant because the other concerns, there's the issue of the education system, there's the issue of the healthcare system, the issues of corruption, the issues of bribery, there are security issues where young people, there's a lot of abduction, there's a lot of hijacking along the roads, the bypasses, the issues there, and these are things that really, 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 really need to be addressed. In fact, one of the things Abdikadir said, because Cherokee was answering him, because it was a talk show, and he said, "Well, we're looking for uh, like a hybrid system." And Abdikadir says they don't work and they don't work well. And when we look at our own system, and the times when we've had to try and expand government to suit people's interests, it has been there's been a lot of problems in trying to achieve, what you know to achieve or to move forward and to get a good track record of what you wanted to achieve. And so he called this he called this Cheragay thing BBI 2.0. And he said the discussion started from the top. It is not from the people. It's not people driven. It's a major overhaul of the constitution, and it is not a priority. So those are some of the issues that that came up in those acts. Of course, we've been dealing again with, and I just want to read the memorandum, the reasons again. So this act, some of this, I'm not sure why that newspaper cutting has been doing the rounds, because the public participation on this particular constitutional amendment, or this particular um, constitutional amendment that was moved by Cherokee, the public participation took place, and maybe the concerns are that will Parliament be responsive to the needs or the concerns of Wananchi? And as I've said, I heard Cherokee on one of the interviews. He said he was certainly going to revisit the idea of the extension of term, and stuff like that. But he did not withdraw or comment on the issue of the hybrid system with the introduction of the. Yeah, come back. Yeah. So is the effect of the Clinton, and not Clinton's, Trump's executive orders on the health sector. Yeah. How have they affected Kenya? How have they affected the rest of the world? We know that the US is the largest, it gives the largest amount of aid, particularly to the health sector. And I think it's particularly to the health sector. And so many nations are affected by it. Here, our fourth president, when there were concerns about his Trump's foreign aid policy and suspension of foreign aid in the health sector for 90 days and all that. our fourth president, Uhuru Kenyatta, said, well, why are we concerned about that? We should be looking for our own ways of managing some of these things. So what I do know is that there's been a later waiver on that, because to 55 countries. This was the Secretary General of Africa's Centers for Disease Control. I listened to an interview by him, and he was saying that there's been a waiver of 255 countries because of the threat of it's the threat, the emergency threat, because apparently, if for instance HIV drugs are not taken, if there's any hiatus in their use, it could cause some um, drug resistance, which will just rubbishes the whole thing. And he had a very interesting cyclical argument. He said, well, the situation is this: if the Americans just withdraw the funds like that, and then they withdraw the foreign aid to certain countries, what will happen is eventually people try to get to America to go and look for jobs there. And we know what is happening there. They don't want, he's trying to make it quite difficult for people to immigrate there. Although I saw in another interview, he was talking about, yes, we want professionals. We are willing to take in the professionals. Those are the people we want. So there's that type of discussion also. And we hope that issue will be resolved. And it's also, I think, we have been talking about this, that the Republican typically are more hands off, and they engage in bilateral trade, and this is usually a growth time for like African countries, where they start to depend and create new alliances with others, like the BRIC nations and even China, and even across the nation, strengthening the economic sort of associations that they have. Yeah, so those are basically some of the things that we have seen. So some of the changes in the law, two laws were passed in December last year: the business laws amendment and also the tax laws amendment. They're quite involving. So the tax laws amendment act of 2024 and the Tax Procedure Amendment Act of 2024. And these acts amended the Income Tax Act, the VAT Act, Excise Duty Act, Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act, and the Tax Procedures Act. And then we had the Business Laws Amendment Act, which basically touched issues of banking and the financial sector. It was trying to control a few things. It covers they're calling non-compliance of by financial institutions and credit reference bureaus. There's penalties on that. They enhance those penalties. Raising of core capital for mortgage finance companies and banks, and to 10 billion by 2029. And then we had the regulations and credit business, because they're talking about, I remember listening to the public participation, they're talking about buy now, pay later, or pay as you go, and how insecure it is for the buyer, because you could default after you've paid like 50%, and then they'll take possession of what you bought because you've not completed paying or you've defaulted. And it deals with peer-to-peer lending, credit guarantee, asset financing, and credit facilities, and also regulation of non-deposit taking microfinance companies, and regulation of credit guarantee business. And so the Central Bank of Kenya would have to enact regulation to give effect to the provisions of the Act. So, Maureen, you were just showing something there on the screen. You're muted. You're muted. I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Really?
No. I think your jack, can you put your jack in?
Yeah, let me try now.
Something's loose. Something's loose. There's a sound
Okay. Now can you hear
which
me?
suggests I can hear you.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me? Okay. I think
Yeah.
there is something
Yeah.
wrong with this. Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
talking about the bill. Actually, I'm just sharing the document that you shared, the bills tracker, just to show people
Yeah.
that they can actually track. I think maybe you can let people be aware that they can track the bills that are being shared by the parliament, that are being
Yeah. You
looked at.
can actually.
Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, let me just tell you where you can get some of this information from. If you want to find out how many bills have been passed or where the different stages they're in, you get just Google bill tracker laws of Kenya or bills in Kenya or bills tracker Kenya, and it will take you to the Parliament website, and then you can just click and see how many, where and see the bills which are and their stage that they are at, because there has to be first, second reading, and then it has to go for assent, and then so the columns will show you what stage it is at, and which is very helpful. So there are very many bills which were before Parliament, and that shows you the various stages. Some of them received a presidential assent, like the business law amendment, and also the tax laws amendment. Those two, which are, I think, the ones of main discussion here. The one regarding the constitutional amendments by Cherarkey, that is still under discussion. And I think it's likely that the document may look a bit different from what we expect, because some of the issues you'll have to revisit them, especially regarding the extension of the term. Yeah, so the other thing is if you want summaries, say, on the two acts, the finance, not the finance,
Can you hear me clearly now, Susan? Ah, we're having a problem with the internet here. Okay, sorry guys. Well, what I was this is what I call chaotic. Why do we have to have so many bills? Guys, let me try and see if I can share this with you while Susan also tries to get back on. Let me remove Susan from here. Let me remove her from the studio and then she can come back in. Let me remove her. Very sorry to have to remove Susan. Today is a little bit of a difficulty for us today, but it's okay. It's life. It's challenges of life. We just live with the challenges that we have. We're trying to share important information with you. This one is about the bills tracker here and knowing about your bills. You see, Susan is a lawyer by profession. For the rest of us who are not lawyers, we're talking about the 13th Parliament, and it's called the Bills Tracker, and it's updated as of 20th January 2025. And I saw 119 bills. That's the reason why I keep sharing this screen with you. And let me give you examples of the bills that are here. There are bills that have been passed with amendments and referred to the National Assembly, that's the Parliament, for consideration, like the County Vocational Education Training Bill. That one was passed by the Senate. There's other ones here. Additional Allocation Bill that was passed. Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Bill. Natural Resources Bill that was passed with amendments. And there are others here which are still here. The Independent Electoral Boundaries and Commission Amendment Bill passed by the Senate without amendments, referred back to the National Assembly. The Prompt Payment Bill negotiated. It's at the second stage of reading. I guess the blue ones are in second stages of reading. The county licensing uniform procedures, and so many bills, guys. All of these are going to end up becoming laws. The Division of Revenue Bill. Some of the bills that are worrying Kenyans today, I don't know whether Susan talked about it earlier, are the ones that have to do with extending term limits, for example. Yeah, let me try and see if I stop sharing that screen. Sorry. Like extending, oh, we have Susan back. Susan, please come on board. I don't know whether you talked about, Susan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
We
good.
did.
I don't know whether you talked about some of the bills that are a bit of concern to Kenyans, which are extension of term limits, for example.
Yes.
Bills,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm.
extension of the term limit for the presidency to
Yeah.
from 5 years to 7 years, and for members
Yeah.
of parliament as well, for 5 years to
Yeah.
7 years. Yeah. So did you mention that?
Yes, I have.
I,
We've talked
oh,
about
you
it.
have already. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we've
I'm
already
behind.
talked about that, and also talked about the tax laws amendment act
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
business law amendment. Those are the two that there was lots of public participation in. Actually, the three of them. There was a lot of public participation on the three of them, and let's
Yes.
hope that actually the one of the bills that we'd like to see is the public participation bill, because that needs to be legislated. Um, you know, currently there is no bill, and that is why we're finding it's actually the courts which are making decisions and guiding people, guiding the legislature on how to handle public participation. But I think following the outcry, they've realized that the Kenyan citizens are quite aware of their rights, and they will speak up, and they will say, um, they will find a way of making sure their voice is heard. So
Yeah.
that is actually better for them to pass that bill, to have a bill and get it debated, and for people to know we can engage in this way. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, I was listening to the medical sector. There was an interview about their plight, and we know they're facing unemployment. Their interns are not employed, qualified doctors are not being employed. We have that happening. And one very interesting thing I heard was that the reason why they're not employed is because the county governments are deciding that they don't want any more doctors, despite the fact that they're understaffed. And that is because of their budgets. So the doctors are, not getting jobs. And you're saying previously, before devolution, the doctors would be sent to all corners of Kenya. The minute you graduate, you're just sent out to different parts of Kenya. But that's not happening, because now the counties themselves have these employment boards, and they have to go through that, and they have to say, we have this demand and this requirement. So devolution, I think, has worked really well in some cases, but in others it has actually brought barriers, and those barriers are actually limiting the availability of like essentials um, services, like medical people. Why aren't the doctors working? They're there, they're qualified, they're trained, and we know that the hospitals are understaffed, and it has something to do with the money not
Yeah.
being enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there are very many. I just want to comment again. You could see on that list that as Queen Mo was scrolling, there are so many pending bills, and bills that are at different stages of discussion before different House committees. Not all of them will even pass. Um, they will not pass. They will not even pass after the first reading. They won't go. They won't go through. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
have been sent back. By like that particular list you saw was actually from Senate, and some will be sent back to the National Assembly by the Senate for them to review certain things. Others would just be withdrawn. So
Mm-hmm.
not all of them will pass. Yeah, it just depends on what it's about, and what the parliament feels about it. And it's really important for us to vote in the right people in parliament, because otherwise, if there integrity issues like we saw where during, say, Gashagwa's impeachment, where it was an echo chamber where they just decided on this procedure, and they made a decision to, I mean, their numbers were so many, and we know that some of the problems Parliament has had is lack of quorum. But yet, when it came to impeaching Gachagua, they were there in numbers, and they had like a super majority, and that is when we knew that our system can be quite efficient, because they did it it was done so fast. Um, the other thing about, by the way, the Cheragay's bill is that it's trying to address some of the issues of impeachment of the governors. It's trying to address trying to because of the impeachment process of Gachagua, I think, taught people many lessons. Because if you remember, it went before the High Court as a constitutional question. Now it seems that they're trying to put things so that it goes to the Supreme Court instead. So, but
Yeah, but
those are.
from what we're hearing, Susan, if I might interrupt, is that it looks might actually keep his position. I mean, if not his position, I mean, he might be offered another position. It looks like people people are trying to make amends with him at the highest levels. Yeah, from what we're seeing, we're not sure, but we're hearing wind of it, of the fact that there could be negotiations going on behind closed doors. Yeah, have you heard anything about that?
Not really. There's a lot of political noise going on. You're not sure. You have to really
That's the
sift
word,
the
noise.
the truth. You have to really
And
sift
that's
the
the
truth.
chaos. Yeah,
Mm,
it's very
yeah,
chaotic for us in Kenya. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely the discussions and the circus. Remember the mess of when they went to the funeral service, and then there was fighting, and they were so distraught. There was another one that
Yes.
was in Limuru area, and there was another one in
Mhm.
Ukambani somewhere. It was just a mess. The mourners ended up fighting. Just so
Yeah.
actually, you're right that there's a lot of
Very,
very
it's just too chaotic.
disturbing.
It's,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
yes. It's very
A
chaotic.
lot
It's
of
very
this.
disturbing.
Yeah.
It's actually making us nervous. It's affecting tourism. It's affecting even local tourism. It's affecting business. I think that our leaders are out of control. Our leaders are just not, they're not behaving right. That's basically it. They're not behaving like leaders. I really hope that, we're going to get out of this mess that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
because we are in a mess. At least that's my own view. That's my personal view. That's not Susan's view. That's my personal view. African Queen Mo. I believe that our leaders are out of control. They're in a mess. It's like it's child's play. And not just child's play, it's also very dangerous. We have seen people lose their lives in this country. Young people are losing their lives left, right, and center. We're hearing of people's bodies being found in places that we're not expecting to see. Yeah, on roadsides. Yeah, some of them in the morgue. We don't even know what happened to them. Guys, this is wrong. I mean, I know that I'm taking a turn here, but the fact is that we have to state it as it is, because it is happening. And it just goes to show the kind of chaos that's going on, not just in Kenya. In the Congo, we're having the same problem. We have so many people who have been displaced from their homes. In Kenya, we're having a situation where we can't even agree on pending bills. We can't agree on any bills. Every time that they sit down, they're being paid. These people are not free. They're not coming to us free of charge. We have employed them to do their job. They're not doing their job. Yeah, for whatever reason, they're not doing their job. And I am just pretty much fed up. And many Kenyans are also tired, because Kenyans are very hardworking people. Everybody is trying to do business. People have children in school. People have to pay rent. People have to buy food. Yeah. People have to buy inputs for their farms. They have to, find markets for their produce. People just want to work. People don't want politics. We're not interested in politics. I also blame the media too, by the way. because of highlighting the mainstream media constantly highlighting politics, politics, politics. We need to know more about development. We want to know how are we progressing forward for our people. We have a situation in the US. Sorry, Susan, I've interrupted you a little bit here, but I just want to bring a little bit of emotion to this discussion from my end, where we have a situation where we have Kenyans and Africans being deported or being removed from the West. Where do they go? Are they going to come back to our countries? If they come back to our countries, what are they going to come and find? What will they find? Is this place safe for them? Is it safe for women? Is it safe for you and me, guys? Is it? Yeah? Do we have a parliament that is serious about serving its people? Are they just thinking about themselves, extending their term limits to 7 years? Why do they need to extend their term limits? For what? And just like President Uhuru has been saying, why are you crying? Yeah, why are they crying? Just because Donald Trump has decided to reduce the funding to Africa and to the South, the global South. Why are you crying? That's a question. We're not paying taxes to them. We're not paying taxes there. Listen, we've been seeing on international media Americans sleeping on the streets, sleeping on the bridges, sleeping in their cars at Walmart. We hear them crying. They can't afford rent. They can't afford food. They can't afford healthcare in their country. So what do we expect? Do we expect America to always come bailing us out? Are we waiting for the West to come bailing us out? Guys, we have to ask ourselves these serious questions as Kenyans, Zimbabweans, Ethiopians, Congolese, Rwandese. Why are we fighting? We as African women, we want to know, why are our men fighting? Who are we fighting? And why are we displacing children and mothers? Why are we displacing them? Yeah? This is not a joke. This is not acceptable. We don't want to live in a country which is insecure, where you worry about your life. We want to be moving forward. We want to be like competing. Young people in this country are looking to compete with Chinese youth. The reason why China is ahead is because the government of China supports business. The government of China supports education. Yeah, we are taking education too lightly in this country. We should not forget that we are beneficiaries of an education system that was placed there for us, for everybody to have access to. Why are we denying young children education? Young people education. They deserve their education. And we're not going to progress in this country in this continent without education. As we can see, Mnangagwa down there in Zimbabwe, I believe he is, what are we doing here? We are looking at a situation where we have innovators who are creating vehicles that can move without energy, from nothing, literally. Radio waves. They're using radio waves to move vehicles. This is what we want. We want that Africa back. We want Africa that is, we're seeing Traore coming together with the president of Zimbabwe to try to encourage and enhance creativity, innovation in Africa. Africa is the mother of innovation. This is where we started civilization, in Africa. We should stop politicking. Stop politicking. We're not interested in politics, in negative politics. We are not interested. In your 7 years, in your 5 years, we're not interested. What we're interested is to see, what have you done with the time that you have been given? Even if you're given 1 year, even if you're given 2 years as a president, as a deputy president, as a parliamentarian, as a member of the county assembly, as a governor, that is enough time to make a difference in your county. And we have seen it with some of the governors in Kenya. Some of them are making amazing difference. That's what we want. We want to see people who are serving their communities. We want to see SHA working. We want to see healthcare working. We want to see housing available. And this is not the time to be talking about housing people in little studio apartments, a whole family. That's not what we want. We want families to be housed in family housing. We don't want people cramped into tiny spaces where domestic violence can happen, where children's abuse can happen easily behind closed doors. No, we want to see a different continent and a different Africa. A lot of people are living in the diaspora, hoping to come back to Africa. People like us, Susan and I, came back from the diaspora. We've spent a lot of our energy building our country, and we want to see it moving forward. So my issue is, what on earth is going on in Eastern Africa? Can we just get our act together? Can we see ourselves as brothers and sisters and actually build our continent? This is the biggest continent in the world. It's the biggest. Yeah, and has the most amount of resources. Why are we fighting each other? Why? Are we going to wake up every single day and wear a suit and tie and go to the office and just talk about, let me link up with you, all these games? We're not interested in games. We want to see development. We want development in Africa. And we want to see fairness. And I'll allow Susan to continue because I just brought a bit of emotion program because this is who I am. African Queen Mo Cardiff. African Queen Mo, okay, lived in Wales. I live in between Wales.
Your sound. My
sound is going again.
I think you need to push the jack in clear, properly. It's a crackling sound. Not heard it before. Yeah, in fact, you can get really het up and really concerned by what we're seeing and over dependence, say, on the north, the global north, and
Sorry, my
and not feeling not feeling that we can solve our own problems, which we can. And let's hope during this time of the Republican presidency that Africans will become more innovative and more strengthen those economic networking in within the economic blocks and across the economic blocks, because that's what we need to do. We need to solve our own problems and not be too dependent on the West, and some of the things that we're doing are we don't need the band-aid problem solving skills. We need to be able to look at sustainable solutions to some of the issues. See, some of the things when we're even talking about making laws, they should not be a response or a reaction to something. And even when you look at the reasoning behind Cherargei's wanting to extend the presidential term from 5 to 7 years, he was talking about, the first year is spent in defending your position in the Supreme Court. The next year is employing people. So those are 2 years gone. The last year is now you're campaigning. So you only have 2 years, left. And basically, even he was giving it away because it was all about them, the person who is doing it. And and
they're not thinking about the taxpayer that is actually funding their role. So in that case, if the first year there's nothing they're doing except defending their role, they shouldn't be paid. The payment should come in when they start working. Yes, they should be paid half their salaries, and their payment should come in when they start actually delivering results, delivering activities, and doing work for the people. Yeah. So what about this accountability? What about the issue of accountability? Why should we give people who are not accountable to the people more time? Why? Do we have it's not about them feeling comfortable. Many of these people, by the way, who are in government have never worked as a day in their lives. They do not know how to make honest money. They don't know how to make money. They don't know how to go out there and live and hustle like Mama Mboga. And this is the reason why they hustle. That's why they disturb business people, because they do not know what it takes to actually develop an idea and implement it on the ground. Take the risk, take your resources, take the risk, implement it, and wait and see it germinate and grow. They have no idea. They know how to move only from getting appointed to getting money. Period. That's it. You get appointed, you get your position, and from there, the thing is, your eyes are wide open. You're just waiting for Treasury to release money. You don't know where it came from. You don't know how it came from. All you know is that you managed to convince people. You got yourself into that position, and the next thing, it's bring up the money. Enough of this. What about those people who are working hard every single day to make a living, to eke out an existence? Actually, that's the word, eking out an existence. So my issue is that enough is enough with us in Africa. I'm also done. I'm like Trump. I am done totally with all these Africans, all these African presidents and leaders. I'm done with them. It's time for us as citizens to demand accountability, to demand that they actually work, to evaluate them, to review their work. If they say they have a manifesto, They have to live by their manifesto. Yes. And not come up with, oh, but what about you didn't judge the last president by their manifesto? How come you didn't get hold them accountable to their manifesto? Well, times change. The one thing that is constant in life is change. And we're at the point now we are demanding that these governments actually live up to their promises to the people. And the only way, and not to threaten people who demand that. There's no point of threatening people to demand who demand that, because it will continue. Yeah, it's a pot that's boiling over. So you get rid of a
Yeah.
few people, another group comes up. You get rid of another, unless you get rid of the whole wide world, until you get rid of the last man on the planet. And then who are you going to be leading? The trees and the bushes and the sand and the rocks. Who are you going to be talking to? You need your people. You need them, and you need the vocal ones. Yeah, these people, they need vocal people to talk to them. Yeah, and it's about time that we actually, spoke up, and we support those who speak up, as long as you're not insulting people. The thing is, there's a fine line between insulting and abusing people. That's where now I draw the line. But when you demand accountability, I think that is just part of humanity. We have to demand accountability from our leaders. And one of the accountability from our leaders is to deliver within the period what you said you will deliver, and to stick by it, and to
Yeah.
refer to it. And stop adding and
Mm.
changing the goalposts and adding new goals now we're talking about extending time. That wasn't part of the manifesto. No, 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 no. We talked about agriculture. We talked about innovation. We talked about healthcare. We talked about
Healthcare.
housing.
Mm.
Let's focus. You only have
Yeah.
5 years, and you yourself has said that 5 years is not even enough time, isn't it, Mr. Leaders? Yeah, you say that 5 years is not enough time because the first 2 years are lost in whatever, whatever, whatever. Fine. So you deliver in the last 3 or 2 years your manifesto. Let us see what you've managed to achieve within that period. And please don't tell us that housing a mother with 3 children in a studio is an achievement, because it's not. That is a
No,
first sign of failure of your policy. Because where in the world is it okay, even in traditional society, for a mother to live in one room with all her children? Even our huts never used to look like that. We used to have compounds with huts. You're better off just building huts for us. Yeah, build the huts for the mothers and the children and the parents, and don't put us in big blocks with the tiny little rooms and say that you're going to buy a bed from China and another stool from I don't know which country and whatever, and and say that is now a home. That is not a home. I don't care whether it has Wi-Fi. Yeah. What
Mm.
is the cost of putting Wi-Fi in a country? Do you know what is the cost, guys? One of the costs of ensuring that there's a very fast Wi-Fi in country to cut down trees. One of the reasons why trees are cut down is to actually enable penetration of Wi-Fi signals. And this is something that needs to be discussed and talked about, that we are compromising our health and our environment just to enable us to have, high frequency data traveling. And who is making the money from that? That's the question. Yeah. Who does it benefit? Who does it benefit to have 5G, to have 3G, to have 4G? Who does it benefit? Yeah. At what cost? At the cost of a tree that takes hundreds of years to grow. You're going to cut down trees so that you have internet penetration, and so that you can control an environment and control a people. Put them in big blocks of apartments so that you can control people, instead of putting them on the land to grow their food, to grow food for this country, to grow organic, safe food for this country. So one of the best things that's going to come out actually from this immigration issue of Trump is that many people, the new gig economy that's coming from Trump, is actually picking fruits and vegetables. That's what I heard somewhere. Picking fruits and vegetables in the field is a new gig economy. And the benefits that are going to come from that, guys, is going to be the Americans are going to know what chemicals are going into their food. Yeah, they're going to be participants in agricultural practice. And now I think that they'll have safer food. Because once they realize what they're eating, what's been coming on their plates, when they go out there for their gig economy, when they go out there for their seasonal contract of picking turnips and vegetables from the fields and corn, when they start to see, yeah, what it takes to bring that stuff out, what it takes to grow that stuff, what rubbish is being used to grow that food, they are going to start becoming demanding. And yes, the food will
Mm.
become expensive, but it will become safer. So there are, pros and cons. So let us all support the the new wave, which is actually a new thing. It's a new thing that is happening. And yes, there will be some casualties. There will be some unfortunate casualties in terms of some people will be removed from the country who should have remained. But let that be lesson for people not to go crossing into people's borders without the papers. Yeah, because other people have to go through interviews and have to pay a lot of money to get visas, to get the right papers, and to keep themselves legal in their country. So why is it okay for people just to cross over and start becoming dependent, start becoming, you know, start having high expectations of governments to keep them there and start talking about their rights? What rights are you talking about? When you're illegal, you're a criminal. That's a fact. You've committed a crime by coming across the border without your papers. That's a fact. That's just the way it is, unless they want to change the law. I think maybe Susan can continue from there before I continue ranting, but this is becoming a rant. What is going on in
Yeah.
Eastern Africa? I've had it. I'm tired of seeing black on black crime in Congo. I'm sick and tired of listening to Kagame and his long stories about M23. What are they doing in Congo? Honestly, sincerely. Yeah. Of course,
Yeah.
every single country is a victim of the Belgian conference that went and divided Africa and left people, families on either side of the borders. Even in this country, we have that. We have Somalis
Yeah.
in Somalia, and we have Somali Kenyans in this side. And Julius Nyerere of Tanzania also said that we have that Tanzania has Maasais on one side
Yeah.
and also has Maasais in Tanzania. So what are we going to
Mm.
do? Does that give you the reason? Does having Tutsis in the Congo and Tutsis in Rwanda give you the whatever? Does it give you a right to go and invade another country? Does it give you a right? And why does it have to be sponsored by people from outside the continent? No, 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 no,
It's
no.
really
This is going
unfortunate.
beyond
Yeah.
Pana Suzanne.
Yeah. It's
And
very
then on top of that,
unfortunate.
you go and kill your brothers from South Africa. You go and people from South Africa are going there to help Congo defend their land, and you actually go and unalive them. That is just unacceptable. We Africans have to come back to ourselves, to our roots, to our traditions, to understand that spilling of blood traditionally is looked down upon. We don't do that.
Yeah.
It's not part of who we are. Yeah, even growing up, I remember one of the things that we were always warned about is never to spill the blood of an innocent man. Never to do that. And in fact, even if there were criminals in the society, what usually used to happen was they were actually just told to leave the village. They were excommunicated, yeah, removed, but not unalived. Unaliving is an African. It's not our way. It's not the what we do, and we should get away from
Mm.
that. These people who are bloodletting everywhere, we have to stop it. We have to stop it and remind them about who we are as a people. Yeah, we are not those
Yeah.
people. We are not, or maybe then they're not one of us if they do that. Yeah, Susan, now
Yeah.
I'm done. Now you can continue.
Yeah. Coming back to Kenya, we were asking what's happening. The judiciary also is facing an onslaught. There are several petitions to remove judges from office. The Supreme Court, in particular, is very badly is one of the courts that is hit by that, starting with the Chief Justice. And there were big debates about whether it was misogynistic, whether it was actually online bullying, because remember, we're saying that when women who are in high positions of power face a lot of bullying and
Yeah, they
online
do.
harassment as a form, and many of them will
Are
say
an
that
easy
this is,
target, very easy
yeah,
target. And this
yeah,
government really made sure that they've dealt with women, which is very, it's weird. Women are
yeah.
supposed to be
So
protected, it's
yeah,
just
so
not acceptable.
yeah, so yeah, so there are petitions and stuff like that. Of course, there's some concerns. You see, the Law Society is also saying that the judiciary has failed. They're corrupt. They're not doing their job. They're not producing results, the right results, or good results. So the reasoning of arguments or judgments is below par and stuff like that. So there have been some concerns even from professional bodies. But when you look deeply into it, you can see, or rather, when you try to understand what is happening, perhaps we should consider the reasons why some of these things are happening is because maybe the people who are holding certain offices are not the ones that you can manipulate, that you can control, that you can bribe, because they're not accessible to you. So you'd rather have somebody who favors you in that office. So the issue of integrity, we can't wish it away, and we cannot say that it is not a valid concern, that might be the reason why the judiciary is under attack. But it doesn't also absolve them from maybe their failures in terms of being, seen as not being able to deliver justice, and maybe being corrupt and stuff like that. When you find out that, for instance, when a court, that some of the questions you ask is, um, if an applicant comes to your court and wants to recuse you, says that they're not comfortable with you hearing the case. Yes, there are some rules as to whether legal rules as to whether the grounds that must be fulfilled. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, is that if somebody is not comfortable with you hearing a case, then you allow another judge to hear the case. But why would you want to stay and hear a case when the others have said, when the person who's going to argue, the petitioner or the applicant or the plaintiff, doesn't feel comfortable with you hearing the case? So I mean, those are some of the things that bothered me, even in the Gashagwa cases. And because I was, you just wonder, why are they insisting on there are these applications that you should be removed, that you should recuse yourself, and you're deciding not to do it. And then um some of those that, to me, question, that means that the person will not be comfortable. Doesn't matter what you do, they will not be comfortable with the outcome of the hearing. And it's not that it's a subjective thing, but they may have good reasons for not wanting you to hear. Maybe there's a connection somewhere. Maybe there's a connection between the judge and maybe advocates on the defense side, and you're representing the plaintiff side, which is a reasonable concern, because that may well influence the person's ability to make a judgment. Yeah, so the judiciary is one of the groups that are hard hit. um, media houses also, you can see that, is it one of them that was having problems with salaries being paid and stuff like that. So everybody's suffering in terms of, um, you know people's salaries are not being paid on time. That is a reflection of what type of economy we are dealing with. And then we have the political class telling you things which they can't possibly be true in the face of what we are observing with our own eyes, something we have experienced with our own eyes, say, making comments which are unsubstantiated. But at the end of the day, history always tells. You find people saying, oh, bad mouthing a certain president, and then many years later saying, actually, that person was the best president that we've ever had so far. So that's the way it is, and
Yeah.
there are many concerns. Yeah.
Yeah, like one of like, for an example of the claims that we keep hearing is that our economy is doing so well. You know, like we talked about this earlier, Susan, today, about the fact that you keep hearing, oh, the Kenyan economy is the best in East Africa, or is one of the top in Africa. But what are they talking about? What are they talking about? What is this economic growth that they're talking about? Why is it that we cannot see it? Why do they feel that they must tell us? Why must we be told by the World Bank, by the IMF, by you know these bodies that our economy is good? Why does an external person have to tell us that we're doing really well? Are we children? Don't we know? Don't we see? Aren't we supporting so many people? Aren't we employing people who are telling us every day that they're struggling to pay school fees? Right now, there are so many children who are home. In Kenya, there are so many families. I was told every time I send, let's say, my house help home, she comes back with stories for me. And she tells me, guess what? People in the villages, these are the stories. People in the villages, the children are not going to school. They can hardly afford a meal. Okay? People are struggling to put food on the table. Many children, another thing, another one that really worried me so much, the sense of insecurity. Mothers can no longer come back from the market late. Yeah? They could be waylaid and their goods taken from them. In certain parts of this country, there's insecurity. Yeah, people are feeling insecure. People who are living in the rural areas, people who are living outside of Nairobi, they're feeling insecure. Where they used to, naturally, just go to the village, go to the market, come back, go outside after dark, go and have a drink. These elderly men, they like to go out. They're not doing that anymore. There's almost a self-imposed curfew in some parts of this country. Yeah, because the insecurity situation is there. When you hear about all these abductions, for example, chiefs, 5 chiefs in Mandera being abducted, those are government officials. If government officials can be abducted, we are hearing of people like Muturi, who's also coming up and saying that his child was abducted. What was he? What was he working as? Was he an AG or something? He was a very high ranking official. So when you hear that people who work for the government are not safe, then who are you as a citizen to claim that you're safe? Yeah. So
Correct.
what we're going to say is, what is the definition of a failed state? A failed state is one that cannot protect its citizens, one that cannot ensure protection for its, not even protection, security and safety for its people. So why is it that we ask visitors to come to our countries when we ourselves cannot secure our own young people? I think we have a lot of questions to answer. And I think, because all the people who are in power are our age mates, what we can tell them is this: we expect them to run this country the way that the people who fought for it expected them to run the country. If given the opportunity to be in a high ranking position in any country in Africa or in anywhere in the world, then run it. It is your duty. It is your duty to ensure that at the end of your term, they'll be singing your praises. People will be referring to you in a positive way and crying when you leave office. People should be crying, not celebrating, not praying. Yeah, crying that you're leaving office and begging you to come back. Like what we hear about Julius Nyerere all the time. Yeah. Tanzanians, how much they love their Julius Nyerere. They loved him. Yeah. And so I don't know what happened to that kind of, wanting to leave a legacy. What legacy are we going to be leaving behind? So we have now Congo, Kenya, Rwanda, SADC. Since when did Kenya even become one of the countries that is named in such situations? I don't even remember. When we were always the peacemaker. Kenya has always been the peacemaker and the place of retreat for many people who are facing persecution. We should go back to that. Yeah, we should reclaim that. And I feel that right now we're in a very bad place. And I'm hoping against all hope that all of these talks that are planned, okay, by the president of Kenya and the president of Zimbabwe to solve the issue of Congo, that they will actually bear fruit, positive fruit, and that they will stop all of this internal displacements that are going on. The majority of refugees are actually within Africa, from one country to another in Africa. They actually remain on the continent. The vast majority of displacements or people who are seeking refuge, it happens here in Africa. And the country that has the highest number of refugees is the Sudan. Yeah. And I believe the Congo is also right up there. What is the reason when Congo is supposed to be one of the richest countries in the world, if not the richest in the absolute world? If it has all of these minerals and things, why is it that then that country is so poor? There's no reason why Congo should be poor or insecure. It should be a model and being the size that it is, it should be a model for the rest of the world. And I'm hoping that I think this is going to we have a chance to turn things around with the Congo. Now everybody's eyes are on the Congo, and any destabilizing factors in the Congo are not going to be taken lightly or taken well by Africans anywhere in Africa or the diaspora, and not just by Africans, by people all over the world. Because the one thing that we've learned from the Gen Zs is that they're a united front all over the world. They're globally united on issues such as this, such as injustice. We should be looking at countries like China to see how we can grow ourselves and get out of poverty and not remain in poverty. Nobody should be going out there to launch toilets in this day and age. Yeah, have you heard of that? People are going out there to launch toilets, to launch electricity poles. Come on, guys, we're beyond that. We're way beyond that. Yes, there are people there are leaders who are going to out there to launch projects that don't need to be launched by them. They should be launching big, huge things, not small projects like that. So anyway, let's pray for our continent and pray for our leaders. And beyond pray, let's bring them to account. They have to be accountable. And part of that is transparency and stop corruption. We have to stop corruption, stop bribery and corruption, and start expecting better from your leaders. Hold them accountable. For those people who are quiet, history will judge you. History will judge you because you have to open your mouth and speak and say something. History will judge you, and it will judge you harshly. You will be forgotten. You will just be as forgotten as the cockroach that went and died right now, and we never heard about it. Yeah, you better die. They say die on your feet, die standing like a soldier. Yeah. So the thing is that nobody's going to live on this earth forever, but we have been brought onto this earth to make a positive difference. I really believe in that personally. So I'm just hoping that all of us are going to wake up to this call and bring our Africa back. Let's make Africa great again, really. MAGA, make Africa great again. Remember, we adopted this thing from Obama. Yes, we can. Let's adopt this thing from Trump. MAGA, make Africa great again. Because really, we are a great continent with great people, and there's no reason why they should be suffering in Africa. We've got too much for anyone to suffer. So on that note, I want to close the show and say thank you to everybody for participating. For the new people new people in the comment section, for those of you who are watching me having a nice rant, I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah. And Susan, thank you so much for letting me know when you can hear me, when you can't hear me. So today was not a very easy day with the internet. Sometimes we get these problems when it's raining, but thank you for being with us. And apologies for running over time. And we wish you a good evening, those of you who are in Kenya. For those of you who are in other countries, we also wish you a good day or a good evening. And we'll see you on Wednesday, where we have more of similar. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Final words from Susan. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night, Susan.
Good night.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for the wonderful details, Susan. Susan is a detail-oriented person, and I really appreciate that from her. And thank you so much, Susan, for doing the research and for bringing us all that really important legal information. It empowers us, and knowledge is power. We need to know and understand that there are 119 bills in Parliament. Some of them have been passed, some of them are awaiting passing. I don't know what, but these people, we have to hold them accountable and understand that those bills are going to turn into laws. And why do we want to have such a legalized environment to live in? That's another question for another day. So good night, guys. Thank you for being with us today. For those of you who are joining us in the recorded version, please include your comments there. Welcome, Tindet and Fia and everybody who has been on here. Good day. Bye-bye. See you then. Kwaheri.